Yeah,
So, but yeah,
this is my first session. Yeah,
very cool. Nice to meet you.
likewise. Looking forward to the session.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too. Hi, Bill.
great.
Hi.
Yeah,
Howdy, howdy.
great to see
All
so
right.
many new faces. So yeah, welcome to the call, everyone. Welcome to our 11th community call at AI Product Hive. So we've noticed that those calls are becoming like more and more popular. So that's a good thing, honestly. So thank you very much, all of you, for joining the calls and hanging together with us. So today's topic is AI-enabled source of truth for your product requirements. So we will talk with Chris about that in a couple minutes. So please bear in mind that the call will be recorded. So if you will accidentally say something that you'd like to for us to cut out of the video, please reach out to me. We'll deal with that. But the easier way would be
Don't do that.
yeah,
Just don't do
it. Yeah, that would be the easier way to handle that.
Yeah.
So for some reason, I forgot to fix the indentation there. So that's the last minute fix. But yeah, anyway, here's our quick agenda. So the intro, the like small slide deck about what problem UserDoc tries to solve. So that's probably something that we'll see in a couple minutes. Demo, plans for the future, and a small discussion at the end. So our today's guest is Chris. He's the founder and the CEO of UserDoc, sold 7-figure dev agency, which is huge. Like I'm a big fan of his blog about that. And he's been a senior dev at 23, tech lead at 26, CTO by 28, and started his own agency at 30. So you're speedrunning that life, Chris, honestly. And yeah, that's like really impressive. So yeah, I wonder, like, how do you have any like tricks or probably some of the suggestions how to do that, or it's better to just announce that you have a blog post about like that you have the blog site about that, and we can like lead people there, and that's it.
Well, first of all, Max, thank you for that very good introduction. You've done some good research there. Um, so I guess tips would be never quite be happy working for a boss and always think that you can do better than them. That's essentially not really, but you know what I mean. Like when you lay it out like that, I was kind of like well, first and foremost, I was, interested in software engineering, right? So really loved that component. And to be honest, I sort of felt if you're very passionate about what you do, and you do it on your spare time, then I felt like my path was kind of easy. But I guess I always was sort of striving to that next role, whatever that was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. So yeah, thank you. We'll post that on Twitter definitely. So yeah, keep an eye on that. So yeah, I'm giving the stage to you, and right now we will be talking about the UserDoc and how UserDoc empowers your team with sophisticated AI that ensures your project has the best chance of success. So at this point, I'm stopping to share my screen. So Chris, the stage is yours.
Cool. Thank you. Maybe I'll give a like a little bit of an intro there. So, well, as you mentioned, for about 8 years I ran a software development consultancy. I think, at our biggest, we were like 10 or 12 people, and we started off doing like a lot of agencies and consultancies. Initially, did sort of jobs for startups and little mobile apps and this sort of stuff for friends, but quite quickly realized that most startups fail. Sorry, startups, myself included. We started to get jobs that were sort of for bigger, what I like to say, boring businesses. So stable businesses that have been running for many years and need sort of software to automate their systems. And that was really loving. So I ended up really getting into, helping businesses achieve and exceed their goals based on custom software. So we did a lot of work for public transport companies, helping them triangulate where their vehicles are and doing scheduling, and also is doing like risk assessments and surveying tools. And throughout that process, as an engineer, it was kind of an important realization that even though I like to build, building things isn't always the way to go if you're not building the right thing, or if you haven't untangled the requirements that comes from the user or the end user layer. So yeah, quite quickly realized that, being more of a business analyst or a product owner was really how you can have a very large impact in delivering important software. Jumped into learning those skills quite fast. And then after many years of working really hard, I was getting a little bit burnt out because it's hard work doing client work consistently. Matt, I think you probably maybe just generally know that. But then like an acquisition offer came along from a much larger company, and the timing was really good. So yeah, sold my business, and it was actually my wife and my business. We ran it together. So we sold our business, took a year off to Australia, which is where we live. Traveled Australia in an RV, and started to think about what I wanted to do next. And it kind of just naturally evolved that I sort of figured out that I want to try and help. Really, what I was saying before, that sort of untangling the communication of requirements, and really sort of facilitating building better software, not with code, but with helping that requirements confirmation, gathering, elicitation, long-term management. So that's my big spiel. And yeah, so that's sort of the seed of UserDoc. So I've got I'll take you guys through my boring sales presentation. I probably shouldn't pitch it like that. This is what I take like potential clients, and this is this is kind of aimed at B2B organizations, so larger enterprise organizations that have complex custom software, let's say. So I'll just quickly run through this because it sort of defines the problem and how the general problem space that we're tackling. So UserDoc, you guys can see the source of truth for your critical systems. And essentially, like sort of the main point I come from is like defining and communicating what software needs to do is actually complex. It's pretty simple to all sit down in a boardroom and have the whiteboard and come out and go, awesome, these features and this sort of stuff. But actually, like getting really deep and creating a definition that everyone understands, a lot harder than it actually feels like. So currently, like this, the way of handling the problems, right, are like, different people know different parts of the business, and they know different things about a business, and they have different expectations systems. And so this is something that, along the line of software systems starts to come out. Things get lost, obviously, like regression issues in big systems, side effects of if we add this feature, it'll affect this other part, or if we don't do this, then this part's not going to work. It's just so the general complexity about envisaging software systems. And if we get to like the implementation phase, a Jira ticket or a task may say do X, Y, and Z, but the software developers may not really understand the broader context of where it's used and why that's used, and they sort of just turn into like doing tasks without understanding exactly what we're doing it for and who the people are we're doing it for and what their goals are, this sort of thing. UI designs in business, integral and the way to communicate the visual aspect of software, but they don't get down into like the deep sort of granularity. If you click this button, then this email is sent and the status changes depending. Like this is very hard to communicate from just purely like a visual representation. And essentially, these sort of issues above lead to issues in requirements, and that's issues in defining what needs to be done. And ultimately, if not managed, they become issues in the software. So a lot of bugs in software are actually requirements bugs, way before developers even start touching the keyboard. And so along with like that component, the other aspect I'm trying to tackle is like remembering what software does is actually super hard. So, if you're an indie hacker and you're building your own tools, then you can keep everything in your head, right? Like, you know the features, you know it day to day, everything's cool. But if you're working on a large scale business system, really remembering all the features and the little, you do this, this happens. It's tricky, and we're like humans, right? We're fallible, we're squishy, we're made of meat, so we're not perfect. You know, a lot of software knowledge today in the world relies on what's in people's heads. The classic bus factor, you know, if players who knew how this part of the system works got hit by a bus tomorrow, many businesses would be in trouble, and there'd be a huge cost involved in that. Along with this, knowledge fades over time, especially for large businesses that work on many different projects, and maybe they have custom software, but that's not their core. That's not their core business. What they actually do is, you know, let's say it's a bank. A bank has, you know, large custom software systems, but their ultimate job is delivering, you know, the service, the financial services to the customer, not maintaining a software system. And as systems grow, this compounds. It complex, more knowledge. There's a limit to what humans can remember. And as I mentioned, like, you know, I've had this a few times where like you get to this point where a system you're building or a system you're maintaining is just too big and regression issues start to come in. You forget things. People forget that, you know, adding a field to this model and this table will actually affect the automated email that goes out to the manager. And, you know, it's really hard, even with automated tests, these can kind of come through. And ultimately, these are requirements issues which turn into software issues. And you might imagine, they take a lot of time and they cost a lot of money. So these type of issues that sneak in from that initial phase, you know, in the US alone, $30 billion a year fixing issues related to that could have been caught in that requirements phase. And if they're in the requirements phase, then they cost 5 times more after the software has been released, and up to 100 times more once it's been released for quite a while. So some little anomaly or an ambiguity that's not caught up front could have taken a half for a dev to fix in that first iteration. It would then take like a day or a bit over a day to fix if it got to production and had to be fixed, and then it might take like 20 days to fix in a year later or whatever. So it's quite large. And a couple of big consultancies have proven that software with poor requirements undoubtedly takes 60% longer and costs 60% more. So with all this info, you know, we've been developing software for a very long time, but yet 71% of software that fail are due to issues with requirements. So this is a really large problem. And a lot of software delivery issues sort of get blamed on project management and you know, programmers and team communication. All of that is integral. Not a lot of emphasis put on the requirements phase. But as I mentioned, you know, we've been doing software for a long time. So we have a way of dealing with it. So how are businesses currently dealing with these sort of stuff? You know, boring meetings. So long meetings, we forgot this, we need to call this and go back in, and we've got to get everyone in the room because all this industry knowledge and different subject matter experts. We'll do lots of Zooms, lots of emails, lots of Slacks, all this sort of stuff. Get it out of everyone's head, big design phases, big scoping, real upfront, almost going back to waterfall. You know, a lot of businesses say they're agile, but they're really waterfall. And if they are really agile, you know, awesome. There's still a lot of discussion, quick prototyping, testing. We're going to still find these issues that come back around many iterations. We still know that 71% of software failure comes from issues with requirements. So something in that life cycle isn't sort of working. But if we get all this info and we know we've captured what needs to be built, like the next step traditionally is, you know, documenting it. So you know, a wiki, Confluence, SharePoint, Notion, documents, whatever it is, everyone can collaborate. Awesome. You can do reviews, iterations, fantastic. But the knowledge here is like ephemeral, I guess. Like it's usually touched at the beginning of a project and you document it and everyone's like, oh, cool, we finally can capture like what we want to build. But it's then sort of left to rot, for want of a better word. More often than not, documentation gets out of date, and out of date documentation is, in my opinion, worse documentation because it actually tells people the incorrect thing. So these tools are like, they're collaborative tools, these sort of like Confluence and stuff. But more often than not, in my entire experience and talking to many companies in doing the research for UserDoc, is these get out of date. They're not really the source of truth for your system. And then, from this sort of phase, most businesses would then move on to something like a project management tool like Jira. You break down your tasks, bugs, and you have, we've got to research this and don't forget this. So this is really like a holistic, all the things we need to do, which is integral for slicing down projects and who does what, how long it's going to take, tracking it and sprints and all this sort of stuff. Like undoubtedly, this is the way to tackle that. When a sprint ends or a project ends, all this information disappears. It's gone. You don't hire a new employee and go, all right, for the first 6 months, you're just going to go back and read all the Jira tasks for the last couple of years. It's not used as like training or, the actual source of truth for your system. It's used for delivery and then it's thrown away. So there's a lot of really important information here that is lost. But irrespective from this phase or throughout, then sort of go to the testing phase. So what I'm saying here is these are the parts that requirements touch in a system. And so the testing phase is really like the last line of defense, let's say, for software. But issues that weren't captured with in that initial phase, in the conversations or in the documenting in a wiki or in the Jira or project management, they're not captured here because they were not captured there. So the testers don't even know the ramifications. They don't even know that if you and it doesn't update the order status to whatever that may be, that was needed by the business because it was never mentioned, right? So again, a requirements issue then becomes a real software issue that is costing the business time and money. But as well, there is a crescendo to my presentation here. The world has changed. We now have a little special friend that we can use. So we live in a world now where it has unlocked significant advantages to software and business and technology, and what we couldn't have fathomed doing like 2-3 years ago, and even 1 year ago, as you guys know, like it's completely possible today. And I've been really getting into GPT-4 vision for the last week or so, and again, it's like, we can all probably agree that we're on the cusp, right? So things move so fast that the possibilities for business automation and augmentation is ginormous. And by 83% of companies are saying, AI integration in their business processes is like the top priority right now. And PricewaterhouseCoopers mentioned that, in their very in-depth study, they're estimating that in about 18 months, employee productivity will go up by 40% for those companies that really embrace this sort of AI augmentation. So this sort of leads us to UserDoc, which is the product that I've been building for about 12 months. It's a requirements management infused with AI, or like I often use the term like augmented with AI to help your software succeed. So we take your business knowledge, your system knowledge, what needs to be done, and also like your ideas. We augment that with artificial intelligence engine. And ultimately, we become the source of truth for your software. So instead of your source code being the only source of truth in your business, or your sales team are the only people that really understand it, or customer success, we bring it back to a business, the knowledge of what they have already. So how this works, like a little bit more detail here, like how it fits into the ecosystem, is the knowledge sources through business, so obviously people's brains, what's in people's heads. There's the Jeff upstairs, who's the only one who knows how the accounting module works, or whatever it is. There's documents, ideas, thoughts. These are the general sources that a business has. So we sit between that layer and the creation layer, acting as like almost an AI Copilot for requirements. It doesn't replace project management tools, it integrates them. It doesn't replace knowledge bases necessarily, it integrates them. So it's a layer that's a new layer for businesses, but that new layer, in my opinion, is required because we problems. Those existing tools are awesome at what they do, but not doing what UserDoc does. So a centralized source of living documentation that already integrates with your ecosystem and ultimately creates less requirements issues. And as I've sort of demonstrated, the effect of this is huge in business. This creates living documentation for the business it's up to date. It's what people can refer to in all facets. Obviously speeds up development of requirements, but importantly, it speeds up development itself. And ultimately for systems who own software or companies that build custom software, it's quite a simple line to draw between all of this and saving money or making money, essentially. And now a demo. And as I said, Mac, go over time because I can't stop talking. That's my problem. So feel free to tell me to stop talking at any stage.
Yeah, but by the way, while you're opening the demo, so you've mentioned that like on one of the slides, you've pointed out that the Jira tickets are often lack the context. And in my case, for example, on one of the previous places where I've been working, it was exactly the opposite. So the business had this weird like attitude of like copy pasting huge email threads into the Jira ticket. And after that, our product manager basically sat and went through all of those tickets, trying to get what was the valuable and what was the point of that ticket in the first place, because business tried to put like a 15 email thread into the Jira ticket and say, okay, so you're the dev team, figure out what we can do with that to fix our problem. And it's been like, okay, guys, so we can't understand the user need at all. Like we don't know what you'd like to get. There's like a 15 email thread, but probably people wanted to get something else out of it, and the wording was incorrect, for example, and we will start doing something, and eventually we will throw it away as some kind of nonsense. So what we end up doing is basically we took everyone who was involved in that email thread, sat through that boring meeting you mentioned on one of the slides, and tried to figure out what was the root cause of the issue. And usually it was like, okay, we need to implement an additional button that will roll back some process inside of our application, and that's it. So like basically that 15 emails threads could be compressed into like 3 sentences, and that's it. So yeah, it's been like a huge pain. So in our case, it was exactly the opposite. So if
too much context,
too much context, and the context was extremely irrelevant. So if we would have like a ChatGPT by that time, for example, and we could throw it in and ask to reduce the content of those emails and get the actual points, and then cross-validate those points with the business, that would save like a huge ton of time. So
I've worked in places that's similar as well, right? And I guess like the crux sort of there is oftentimes when people are making tickets in a project management tool like Jira, more often than not, they're kind of just putting in, either a lot of information that needs to be, in your case, like basically decoded by a developer, basically reversing engineering what you think they wanted at that time, or not enough info. And this is a good point, because you reminded me, like those problems I kind of pitched that doc doesn't solve it all. That this is the area that I'm interested in, right? So I'll show you where we are at the moment, and I'm proud of what we've built. Sorry, I'm just going to try and find.
Yeah. By the way, as you're finding it, Pavel, if I'm not mistaken, you're a product manager and a developer. So, like, have you faced the kind of issues that Chris is talking about? So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think I definitely had one thought as you were talking that resonated. Well, I worked most of my time as product manager in medical device company, and there was, well, they had hardware and software, and these are two so different cultures, like hardware
Mhm.
engineering coming from medical devices, and people in software coming from agile cultures. And there's this issue that in agile you think about requirements at the point in time, right? If we get this acceptance criteria right for this sprint, we're fine, like we've succeeded. But in medical devices, you're thinking, if we have audit in 3 years,
Mhm.
will the requirements be well written? And like you don't usually like you don't default to think about this in the agile culture, right? So
Yep.
it's an interesting aspect that you kind of somehow referred to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting. That's the same experience that I had, which I think sort of kicked off this seed of an idea in my head, which is I work with healthcare companies as well, and the effort that we would put into ensuring that that requirements was what was needed, to then sort of throw that away or let it get out of date was a real waste. You know, like as you said, like you need to know that because you can't risk making mistakes in a year, 2 year, 3 year if the business needs to store that for like legal purposes, essentially for auditing or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right, I'll take you guys through a quick demo and feel free to jump in and ask questions. I will start with this is essentially I'll take you with like onboarding a project. So this is using AI to help sort of elicit the requirements up front. And at this point, it's quite text box heavy, let's say. But in upcoming versions, it's a lot more facilitated, where the AI actually helps it guides you along. So essentially, pretty simple. We're sort of filling out like a form, right? So we could go groceries to you. Say it's a grocery delivery system. Let's say it's like Uber, but for groceries. So we'll give it a name, and as a description, we'll go into a bit more detail. It's like a mobile app to order groceries. Drivers have an app for delivery. It's set. So you can go down this path. We then talk about the users, so the different types of users and who will actually interact. And it's just really about capturing all those parts of the system, and users and personas are a really important part of that. So essentially, we say, for example, customer, client, manager. Who is the user? So we'll say customer. What do they do? What features do they use? Describe type. So need to order groceries, this sort of thing. And I won't continue down this path but I'll just let you guys know for essentially where it takes you is you add your user types. You then choose whether you want AI to help you, because at this point you may just be starting your own project and importing from other sources. But if you do, you start entering like their goals and their frustrations. But it's a bit of a process. So I'll take you to like in a classic demo. Here's one I prepared earlier. So you guys should now be looking at like the central user doc screen for a project. So this is the groceries to you project that's like the example that I use. You can have many projects. It's obviously multi-project, multi-team, this concept. So a customer can own their own information, and they can invite a software development team as users, but they keep their own source of truth is an important aspect here. And what we're looking at here is user stories, and they're in folders. So if we go into like the authentication folder, or like the grouping, this could be an epic in terms of like, we have the different features or stories, and the different colors on the icons there represent the different user types. So this one is a customer. So a customer can register an account. And so UserDocs AI gets into this level of detail. It gets into level of detail of like what is displayed on form, and linking of stories. So in the acceptance criteria here, you can see that it says password field must adhere to the password policy. And that's actually a link to another user story. So to centralize requirements, in this case, the business needs that it's, minimum 10, maximum 128, all those business rules that are very important for critical systems. So we can link and almost like programming, where you can refactor something to a function and link it, because requirements are very hard to communicate and split up and share. The part here was linking it. So the AI can create very in-depth user stories, and I'll just create I'll create another one. So we can create a whole new one, and let's say we don't have the cancel order feature, so I'll make that here. And I'm creating a user story. These are different user types I've gone through at the start. And I can just type this myself. I don't have to use AI. Many of our customers don't use the AI, which is because originally it's a requirements management system. But if we do want to leverage the AI, we can create the user story. And obviously, as a lot of the tools exist out there, it creates a nice user story and understands the system. So in this case, cancel the order to prevent unnecessary charges and deliveries. That's correct. And we can also generate the acceptance criteria here. So what's happening is all the information that we understand about this system, so the grocery delivery system, all the information that we already know from those existing requirements. So this is the key. So where requirements are hard to elicit and confirm and to understand the side effects, we want to have that. Can AI help us move faster? So for this new feature, we'll show a heading, cancel order, concise note explaining the potential charges, if applicable. So again, that's adhering to business rules. We display info about the order. And this information is not just made up by GPT. It's actually is referencing other stories. So it understands your system, your models, your entities, and the fields and relationships that they have between each other. And in this case, it gets very detailed. So it shows a cancel order button only if the order status is either received or packing. Understands the order statuses, and it actually understands that received and packing are before it's sent out. So that's received at the warehouse. It's actually not received by the customer. So again, that context is quite specific in a business sense and important to adhere to. If the order status is on its way or arrived, you can say a note saying cancellation is no longer possible. So none of this is like, I didn't teach it to do this. Oh, sorry, no, that's not true. I taught it the rules of what needs to be defined to build precise, important acceptance criteria that can be used to say, all right, we're running through this feature. This is a great first draft, right? This is 60% of what we want. Or, our largest client did a very large audit and they actually came back with it's over 70% correct for all their features. So that's then you add in what you need. So in this case, obviously on click of the cancel order button, it then, cancels the order, does a confirmation, and then you can see here they get directed to a view order. So again, it's making the links. So it's creating that interactive map throughout your system to help users understand. And afterwards, email. And that's just a confirmation because again, best practice software systems have those touch points along the way for the end user. So, long story short, you create a user story. You can, like other requirements management, we can set this as draft and we can add resources, which are like, URLs. You might have a Figma design or whatever it is. And we can save that. We can save that user story and the acceptance criteria. You can then integrate that with Jira. So I've set up a Jira. We've got native Jira integration and integrate with hundreds of project management systems. So I've just created that over here in Jira. And if my internet works, there we go. So it just appeared. And that comes through with a link back to UserDoc because that's your source of truth. And then we have all the acceptance criteria with the links and everything that developers can refer to. But, all our clients, you should not edit your requirements in Jira because Jira is, especially sprints and tickets, they're temporary. They're there for implementation. But if you want to make the change, then obviously you come back to UserDoc and you make a change and you add a revision. And I'll just imagine, sorry, I'm on my QA. I'm on the staging server, but because I want to show you some new change. But if I add an item, we've got full version control, and you can go back in time and confirm what's been changed. So diff. If I had like 2 months worth of changes, I would see like a git diff, right? So the red and the green and the strike through of what's been changed. And you can obviously revert back at any time with this sort of stuff. So the user story component, what we're having here is like, this is when I said a source of truth, right? And that word gets, and it's a really easy thing to say, but essentially if a business always comes back and adds to their requirements instead of creating new ones. So instead of creating a new Jira ticket called like on the register screen, we now need company name, right? Let's just create company name. We'll say it's a text field, it's required, whatever this may be. And then we just simply create a new Jira ticket from this change set. And we're adding to our requirements with no more extra work. And we're just sort of building the living documentation. The new feature that we'll be releasing in a couple of days. So also this is great for asking the business asking questions. So what are the order statuses? So let's say a developer just wants to confirm the different statuses, or a business analyst who doesn't read the code, right? So you can jump and tell you the different statuses that a grocery order can be received, packing, on its way, blah, blah, blah. So you can query your knowledge base very easily. And obviously you guys all get chat stuff, right? So you can chat to it in a natural language way. Along with, I'm probably going over time, so I'll hurry up. Along with users, we have user personas. So for each of your user types, which you identified, we have those personas. So in this case, we have two. We have Mark and we have Seth Jones here. But even though they're both customers of this system, or example customers, they've got different intents and goals and frustrations. Family man really wants to spend time with his children, but has a very demanding job. He wants to leave work early and spend as much time with kids in the evenings and his wife as possible. So his frustrations are really life admin, and he does the shopping, he does the cooking, right? So he's a prime candidate for a delivery system. Now, in a lot of businesses, personas live in the UI and UX realm. They get done by strategic designers or product owners or managers, and they actually don't trickle down to developers. And I feel very strongly that these need to be connected throughout the process, because as a dev, having this holistic view, and Max, you mentioned this before, like you need to know the intents and like why things are important, right? So, I think I'm very big of sharing, because I look at these as requirements as well. They're not just at the start of the project. These are really requirements. You're doing things for these people, or these example fictional people. And then the third component really that marries these all together is user journeys. And these demonstrate how features interact with those personas. So if the user stories are a benefit, something someone needs for some reason, and the acceptance criteria is this is what we need to do to deliver that. The persona is the people we're doing it for. Journeys show us when and where they're used to really give us that understanding. So Mark orders from groceries to you. He downloads the app, and you can see here this step. It links with the features. So download app. So we now have this feature, and on the right we have the journeys that this feature is referenced. So we can start to make that map I mentioned before. So you don't just view a feature. You can see what journey does that feature live? Where does it get used? And then who's the persona that's dealing with it? The journey sort of then flows on to in this case, a warehouse manager assigns the order. So, and this was AI generated, right? So UserDoc understands the different users, what they do, and ultimately in this case, it gets delivered and the family orders dinner. And we could make, actually I'll make a whole new one, right? So I just made that cancel order story. So if we go cancel order, and I'll go, I could say anyone, I'll go Seth, that persona. Seth cancels order, David took. Now I just know that these are the personas that are customers and drivers. So Seth there is a customer of the system, and David is a delivery driver in this case. And this the journeys take a little bit longer, as you guys can probably appreciate. We're probably all very excited when the latency of LLM API calls goes down. Oh, in this case, this is what happens when you do a demo on the staging server.
Yeah, that's the usual state of things. By the way, that's that's a button, the chat with stories. That's like an absolute game changer for me, because like to be able to talk with the whole like your product backlog, that would be simply amazing. So
yeah, that's right. That didn't work. You'll just all have to trust me that these. If you do, I should have done it on production, but yeah, this is something we've been working on for quite a while, the chat with stories. So I wanted to sneak it in here, but essentially, like as I said, I can talk for hours about this stuff, but really that's UserDoc in our first iteration. But the biggest problem now is I have so many ideas about where I want to go next to solve these problems. But yeah, it's cool. I've really enjoyed developing it. Initially, it was very easy because it was sort of these concepts that were in my head. But AI is just there's just so many possibilities. So I'm just really trying to focus on those core. That's why at that presentation at the start, I'm really trying to focus on solving those core problems in whatever way it is, and then seeing if our customers use that and it makes their life better. And it's been really fun.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. By the way, have you considered I've got like a bit broader question and probably will narrow it down a bit. So what are the next steps? So what you'd like to add to the application at this stage, and what are the plans for the future?
Yeah, a lot, as I said. And I also just came back from the AI Engineer Conference in San Francisco, and now my product backlog is 1000x. But really, like the next steps right now, well, we're doing some import related stuff. So I showed you guys that wizard, and that's really good for new project concepts. But if you have an existing system, it's going to go and make all this stuff that may not be correct, because you have very specific features in your existing system. And where UserDoc is awesome is when you have all those features and the knowledge in there, and you make new features, it can really help you like connect up the parts and also chatting to it. Importing from Jira is nearly done. So where we can actually scour your existing Jira backlog essentially of previous tickets, and we can recreate your documentation, reverse engineer. And I've just joined a program with the National Science Agency in Australia that does lots of AI and research and science, and we're working on how to reverse engineer source code into detailed product requirements. So if you imagine that medical app, Powell, that you mentioned, or the medical device, let's say that they've got like quite complex software or something like this, but the documentation isn't amazing, like a lot of businesses have, right? The requirements isn't amazing. So actually, like our business, by leveraging artificial intelligence to recreate that detailed acceptance criteria and user stories from the source code of a system. And that's something I'm really interested in, because I think many businesses do not have that level of detail, and to that point would be, a great start. And GPT-4 Vision, I'm very excited about that. So, an integration quite quickly, just uploading designs of a user interface or a video, and with videos, like a video workthrough of your software, and then instantly just creating the requirements and acceptance criteria and the journeys from that.
Yeah, or a flip chart diagram photo that will instantly translate itself into the tech requirements. So yeah, I've seen that in your eyes already as a software engineer. I guess that like I bet that was like one of the first ideas that you had, because like I've seen so many people trying to put like on Twitter trying to put those diagrams into the ChatGPT-4b, and they it fails for now because it's unable to connect the squares with the lines. But yeah, I think that should be fixed in the nearest future. So yeah, Pavel, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I was just like, you reminded me, Chris, of what I did when I was kind of PO and developer at the same time. In Python, there was this library, I don't remember, but basically that allowed you to write user stories and then given when then as definition of tests, and then it was kind of mapped to the code. So then you were
is it Cucumber? Cucumber or Gherkin?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. But yeah, of course, not all the code is written like that.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, I have to sometimes stop myself from thinking that UserDoc should be like building test cases. Like, there's so many possibilities of like doing that sort of stuff, but I'm just like, I need to have like some boundaries for now.
Yeah, totally. I got you. But this is like an interesting bridge, right, between requirements and the code.
Definitely. Yeah, it really excites me, because ultimately, like, if my goal is to build better software, there's a lot of ways to do that, right? So just confirm requirements, gets delivered in the code is a really interesting thing to solve. So yeah, and to your question, Max, I've been thinking a lot about and sort of prototyping. How can those requirements be used as acceptance tests? How can English language be into automated tests? So test cases are not necessarily written by developers. They're the ones, which is what Powell, you mentioned the cucumber and gherkin. That's what that was sort of solving, but it's still generated code tests behind the scenes. But I think, yeah, too many options. Don't ask me where I'm going to go. But no, right now we're really focusing on different sources of importing projects because most of our customers have existing projects that we want to get in, and I've been helping them get them in there.
Yeah, great that you mentioned that, because we've got a couple of fantastic questions from Ivan. How many customers do you have, and what's the promotion sales strategy?
Yep, good question. So I haven't checked it. So we've got about 25 customers, and that really ranges from, you know, there's a couple of like startups that are on like our starter plan, like just sort of helping them. Let's say that maybe they can't define requirements themselves and they can't sort of put it in that language. So they're using it to help do something they can't do. And then, you know, we've got our largest customer is Infosys, one of the world's largest software consultancies. And they're using it to help their existing projects move faster. So they've got a lot of business analysts. They've got people whose jobs it is to do this and to write great requirements, but they're using UserDoc to help them move fast. It's quite cool. There's like a sort of range of people. You know, some people can't quite do it, so UserDoc helps them create it. Some people can do it and have teams of professionals, and UserDoc helps them move faster. In terms of sales, it's been sort of pretty organic. Yeah, you know, that's not a helpful answer. Essentially, we haven't done any real sales and marketing. I've done any active like campaigns or anything. I've reached out to like, as in like literally just emailed them, and pretty much everyone I talk to wants to have a meeting because this is quite an exciting space, and if you can just sort of show them that the time and cost savings involved in this realm, it's it's quite tricky building a B2B platform with AI at the moment around security and privacy and stuff. So a lot of my conversations with customers is around that, and we're working on actually having use their own AI models to power this as well, because ultimately those questions are going to get more frequent about privacy and data concerns. It's not going away. More people are just going to want to know more and more about where stuff is stored. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but yeah.
Yeah, by the way, regarding the data privacy, like that, the button that I can't throw out of my mind, the chat with stories, because like I'm lacking of like so much right now. Yeah, that I guess that would be the first question, like whether some external LLM like ChatGPT will be trained on my personal data and like give my user personas to some random guy on the internet one day. So
Yeah.
that probably might be the biggest concern there. So the good thing is that the vector databases are becoming much more popular right now. Like there's a bunch of ways to install your own LLM, and yeah, I'm pretty sure in a couple months that concern would not be an issue anymore. So
yeah,
we'll see.
And on that point, just if anyone else is talking to potential customers and sort of needs to find the wording here, using we use GPT-4, but using APIs, it's not used for training any data at all. That's in their policies. And also I'm actually using Microsoft Azure's ecosystem for their OpenAI specifically because they're HIPAA compliant. So they've got some other lab for like enterprise, and I'm pretty sure OpenAI is exactly the same with compliance, but people trust Microsoft. Microsoft is a big name, especially when working with enterprise, right? So we use Azure. They have all different host versions of They're not as up to date, but I don't think they've got the new, like let's say GPT-4 Vision comes out on the 6th of November on the OpenAI Dev Day. Azure might not have that for quite a while, sort of thing, but it's got some extra clout being, and I don't really want to tell everyone this because it might change if I tell everyone, but the APIs are actually faster. So where it might take 10 seconds on the classic OpenAI API, it might only take 8 seconds on the Azure's version. So look into it. But everyone look into it. Don't change the speed for me.
Yeah, the take people trust Microsoft even a couple years ago would be like a huge joke, I guess. But yeah, the times have changed, obviously. So yeah.
Well, I think boring businesses have trusted Microsoft forever, right? They run Windows, they use Microsoft Word, they use Microsoft Teams. All their TVs are powered by Windows, and their network administrators only know Windows. So that's where it helps having Azure. But I definitely know in terms of the developer ecosystem and stuff.
Yeah, true. So Matt, Murnau, Bill, Alejandra, do you have any questions for Chris? We've got a couple more minutes.
No, nothing specific, from my side. Thank you, though.
Cool. Yeah, great.
I have too many.
Yeah, let's answer at least a couple of those, and we can jump into the Slack afterwards, I guess.
Mine was only get the meaning of what Chris was been talking about at the end. I have felt the impact. I think this is going to be great. I hate to think of the poor people who are going to have to evaluate GPT and its impact on the software developers. This is going to have probably even better because it sounds like a lot of the precursors are already there. It's just a question of how many have you hired and how many just forgot about it and went back to the normal way of developing code. Yeah, that's all of the implementation aspects, which is what I've got to worry about.
Yeah, that's
someone ought to be doing a biography of this technology. It has no name. It just happened in Chris's head. I don't know how many other you guys.
Yeah, that's the ethic concerns are all around the place, at least from what I see in the social media. So,
I'm looking at the adopting issues. That's my job, is to get people to adopt it. And there's a whole book of a great. Someone talked about the use of video and recording things during the development cycle. You sit up, you stand up, and everybody goes away except the guy who's got tagged for fixing it. But in the future, if you had that at least documented, if not productized, or in the system already, but that means you're going to have to start thinking about what all the variants are going to be. And you have a system that is adaptable to variants, which a lot of them aren't. A lot of times you get another set of developers like contracting. I mean, all of those thoughts are what are going through my mind. How can you, this is to me great technology. We usually have technology coming from scientists. You guys are scientists. You're computer scientists, not in the old-fashioned way, but it's not getting picked up as a series of papers. And that's how things like quantum engineering, quantum computing is getting propagated. So
yeah, I think it's a really good point. I find that quite I like that opportunity, right? And if I understood you correctly there, it's sort of like in this day and age right now and here, people who understand how to build software can actually have a pretty big impact, especially when leveraging AI. You can work faster and have a lot more, create a lot more with your magic fingertips, where before you might have had to spend 8 years learning machine learning and natural language processing and all this sort of stuff. And as you said, being more of maybe a traditional scientist.
And if you pack this all in an hour, I mean, I'm very glad that you guys that I see here are English speakers. I would be going wild. I never, and I see that Chris's, your company or US, Australia and Canada, US. I think there was a fourth thing for you on your Australia, Canada, US. Yeah.
Yeah,
On-
moreover, Bill, so yeah, if
LinkedIn.
yeah, if I recall correctly, you're from Austin, Matt is from Austin, and like Chris will be in Austin soon.
That's
so,
got my
yeah.
interest, and all I have been worrying about is the impact of GPT, and even the comment about they come differently. It isn't like there's universality like COBOL or Java or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for all the questions. See ya in the Slack. Thanks, Chris, for this brilliant
Pleasure.
presentation. So yeah, looking forward to see you in the Slack as well. So the video will be available in a couple days. And yeah, there is no better way to sum up this call than with the point that Ivan put in the chat. Your product is sick, Chris. Thanks.
Also, you Max have been the one name or so I can check in my Slack. A lot of them come in. We've got a group here in Austin, or anyway, they come in all different names. There is one leader, and they're trying to tackle the GPT, the generative AI kind of thing, and they're more focused. He's a Dell guy, also an Austin guy. I see Matt shaking
Right.
his, but yeah.
Bring them into our community. That would be great.
Yeah.
But he's got a nice community sitting in Austin. It'd be great, but I don't know how much interplay there is. We have some early AI types who have made their names for the last maybe almost a decade, and they're involved. So, but that's just that part of the question.
Yeah.
What I've noticed.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining this call. See you in a couple of weeks, and yeah, see you on Slack as well. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. See you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.